Hello, my name is Christine and I'm on the design team for Arden Creative Studios and also Textures as well. And in today's video, we're playing around with the gorgeous Dragonfly Dreams collection from Textures, and we're going to create a variation of this card. I want to go for a green version of it to see what it looks like. And this is using the fantastic Magnolia Halftone set, which has got gorgeous halftone stamps but also coordinating dies as well, so you can use them individually or we're going to use them together to create this fantastic design where you've kind of got the gorgeous bold outline from the die cut, but then you've got the gorgeous halftone detail stamped into there as well. And I've also used a few Nouveau drops to accent this too. Plus, if you're eagle-eyed, you'll see there's some stitching on here too, but it's not real stitching, it is the gorgeous transfer rub-ons in Stitch Pattern Volume 2, and they are absolutely gorgeous. There are so many different stitches in here, and you're getting two different designs. You're getting them in black and in white, plus you get the flipped version of them as well, and you get 2 sheets of each. So there are 8 sheets in here, and they really do go a long way. I was using them on a ton of different projects, and I still have over half of my black sheet there. That's just one of the sheets that I've started. So we're going to be using those, maybe not the same stitches, maybe some different ones. We'll try a different take on it, just to sort of go around our sentiment and also add a little bit of detail around the border of the card as well. So stay tuned to see how this card comes together. So first of all, we want to take our cardstock. Now I like to work on my favourite panel size, but you could definitely work on something larger and cut it down and turn it into multiple cards as well. But I'm working on a piece of card that is 10 centimetres by 13 centimetres because that makes my favourite size of card. And I'm going to put it into my stamping platform and hold it down with a couple of magnets. For the green version, I've chosen Twisted Citron Distress Oxide, and you want to use an oxide because it stamps more detailed. It's still not as detailed as some other ink pads that are on the market, but in terms of using Distress Ink versus Distress Oxide, Oxide's going to work better for stamping all of the detail in these halftone images. And then you want to decide what image you're going to go with. Now, obviously I'm recreating a card here, so I know I'm going to work with the middle sort of sized image, but you have a smaller one and a much larger motif as well. So you could definitely use all 3 of them together if you want to. And then when you're die cutting your outlines, you'd only have to run it through less times through your machine because you'd be using all 3 of the outlines rather than just the single kind of version here. But let's take our gorgeous Magnolia stamp, and then we just want to position it onto our card and get our first impression in place. So I think I'm going to go about there. Hold that down nicely, close my stamping platform, pick it up, and then ink this up. And I want to use a stamping platform just because there's so many gorgeous fine details in these half-tone stamps. I want to get all of that detail, and if I'm using an acrylic block I can only stamp once, so just in case I don't quite get all of the details the first go round, I can just re-ink a little bit and darken the colour, or get some of the details that I may have missed the first time around as well. So I like to use a stamping platform for that reason. I'll zoom you in a little bit closer there as well. Then, when you are repositioning your stamps, you can just live on the edge and pick it up and reposition it, put it back down and hope that you haven't smudged anything. But if we move our magnet, so we're holding the card in a different area, I often like to use a piece of acetate. I do have one that says stamp on this side only, but it's really dirty at the moment. I need to clean it. So I thought I'd just use this scrap piece here. But I'm just going to bring this stamp in and move it to about maybe that kind of position there. So we're going to fill in this side of the card first and pick that up, and now any excess ink has gone onto this piece of scrap acetate, not onto our cardstock, so we're not going to get any double halo kind of stamping when we're stamping our second image. So we can just, I think I'll probably do them all twice just to make sure we've got a really good, lovely half-tone impression on these gorgeous images. I mean, just like that looks fantastic as well, but we are going to add the die cuts onto this one. Then I want to do this edge one here. I don't know if we're going to definitely have enough room. I think we should just about have enough room. you know, to hang it over the edge here. So I think I want to kind of maybe nestle it like this, and then pick that up with the lid. It's going to hang over a little bit, but we know that we only need to ink this portion of the stamp here. So we can ink that up, flip it back this way and press that down, and redo again till we get a second impression like so. Then I think it's going to be easier if we start to rotate our cardstock now to get our next impressions. Maybe let's go in this direction so that we can overhang them over the edges of our cardstock as well. So this one, if I move it this way round and put our acetate back here, I'm thinking this one kind of coming in from the side like that. And then we can ink it up once and a second time like so. And then for the final one, I think we'll just have like the top head of the flower coming in from the corner. So probably a bit like that, I think. Okay. So that acetate has come in very handy because we've been able to place it on there and not get any of that excess ink on our project. So if you've never seen that tip before, it's really helpful, especially when you're doing multiple stamping with the same image. Okay, so we can ink that up, press that down, and do a second impression on there as well, like so. So we've now got our whole background done, and we can move our stamp to one side and we can clean that later and put that away. And then we can take our background out of our stamping platform and have that like so. I think maybe this way up looks nice, or this way. No, this way. Okay, so I'm going to have it in that orientation, and you can see here we've kind of got 5 flowers. So when you're die cutting, you want to take your die that coordinates, and you can double check by just placing it on top, and you can see it goes over the top of that really nicely. It would look really nice in black actually for a striking effect, but I've gone with the Kelly Green textured cardstock from Arden, which is the 12 by 12 sheets of cardstock. It's smooth on one side, textured on the other. I have die cut on the textured side, but it kind of has squashed the cardstock quite a bit, so you can't really see the texture too well, but it's a nice thicker cardstock for giving a sort of higher profile for this outline design. And I've cut this, I think I've got 2 that were completely full images, and then 3 sort of partial ones, just cutting from a scrap of cardstock that I had. So we can place these into position where they want to go over the top of those gorgeous halftone images, and you can see how nicely they fill the outline design in. They look absolutely gorgeous. This one might be big enough just to, oh yeah, that worked well. That's just big enough, that one. This one's kind of got the leaf part on it, and then this one does have the top of the flower still showing. That leaf is kind of missing a bit, so maybe we'll pinch the leaf from over here. This is the good thing about having die cuts that hang off your card. You know, you can place them in the right position, and then you can always pinch pieces from other places, especially when they're kind of hanging off in portions like that. So I think we've got a good amount of coverage for all of our die cuts there. So I'm just going to stick all of these down, and then we'll come on to the next step. Okay, so now we've got those all stuck down, we can carefully use a long bladed pair of scissors to come along the edge of our panel and just snip off those overhanging pieces of the outline die cuts. Just using the edge of the cardstock as a guide. You can work from the back too if you'd rather do it that way as well. Just snipping down to remove them all like so. So we've now got our completed background there. We just got to decide, I can't decide which way up looks, I think maybe this way up does look good. Okay, so For the sentiment on this card, I'm going to use a different one to what I used before, but on the previous card I used On Your Special Day from the Watercolour Splash Halftone set, which is also a fantastic another set in this Dragonfly Dreams collection. But for this card, I think I'm going to go Thinking of You as the sentiment. So I'm just going to take an acrylic block, my black ink pad, because we're going to be using the black rub-ons in a second, and I'm just going to stamp this onto another piece of the same white card that I was using for the background. And I'm leaving a lot of space around it because we're going to add some rub-ons to this as well. So there we've got our sentiment, which I often like to put the sentiment right in the middle for a card like this, but feel free to, actually we could do it in a different orientation. Maybe we'll make this one a portrait card and do it this way rather than doing a landscape again. Yeah, I think that'll look good actually. Okay, we're going to go portrait then. So we're going to have it in this orientation now, and let's come back to our rub-ons. So these are the Stitch Pattern Volume 2 rub-ons. So as you can see, I've started a couple of the sheets of these, and I've used quite a few of these black ones on different projects that I've been creating, but I still have a really decent amount left. And looking at what I have left, we kind of want to use similar stitches so that things will coordinate together. So maybe if we go with the bigger zigzag and the smaller zigzag, we may only need one version of these. Maybe we could get away with just using the smaller zigzag for things. Okay, let's see how we can do with this. So we're going to go with these smaller ones here. So all I do is take my scissors, and keeping the backing paper on the front, you've got to keep them both together, otherwise you can randomly rub off parts of your design when you don't want to. We'll snip this long one out for now. And then all I was doing to create a border on this card was just taking my rub-on, eyeballing where I wanted it to go, like right up to the edge of the panel, because I don't mind if they cross over. Rub-ons actually rub really nicely on top of each other as well. So I think about there, snip that off, and then that would be that little portion to fill that bit in there. It kind of seems tedious, but it does look really good when you've done it. So, and then I think maybe about that length, like that, to fill in that gap there, and then they'll kind of touch at the corner. So let's do this one together. So let's zoom you in a little bit closer, and we're just going to carefully peel the backing off of this without touching the rub-on. It is a little bit difficult when you've cut away so much of the carrier sheet, but it is possible. And I'm just going to place that down like so. So it's sort of touching the image and then going off the edge of the card for this one. And I'm going to take a glide folder or bone folder, whatever you prefer to rub your rub-ons with. They come with a lolly stick as well, so you can use whatever you want to. I'm just going to rub that on nicely, then hook up the end of it and peel that backing paper off. And we got the first little bit of our border there. And then we can go with the second little piece that we have cut off and place this. I'm going to go up to that sort of leafy bit there, and then overlapping a tiny bit onto the border we've already put down. And then we can remove that. So we're basically just creating our own custom sort of sewn border around the edge of our card. You don't have to go to town with it and put it everywhere. Like on this one I did miss parts of it. I was mostly focusing on the corners and like the larger edge pieces there as well. Sorry, you couldn't quite see what I was pointing to then. The corners and the larger edge pieces there. So I think I'll probably do similar on this card as well. So the next bit we'll go to is, I realised I did snip that off a little bit too short, so make sure you don't snip them off too short when you're nicking bits to go in different areas of your card. But I think for this one we'll go about there, and we can rub on this piece. Maybe we can disguise the fact that I cut that a little bit too short. Let's do that. And rub that one on and remove the backing, and then we'll go around the corner and do about there. And like that. Like so. And then we've got this small piece left. So where would this look good, and what other pieces, like where else are we going to want to put this? I think maybe we could do that as just a portion that sort of stops part way across the border there. So let's add that piece on here. I think that'll look good. Like so. Right, so we've kind of got two corners done and a little bit of a border, but we've run out of that strip now. We do have this slightly curvy one, so we can definitely use that piece. Or we have this piece that is a similar strip with a line, a different stitch line running through it. I think this piece is probably going to be the perfect kind of length for us, so let's snip this one out. And then we could stick that all of the way across there and then use this tiny leftover piece on the end. If I snip that about there, we've got enough for that long run there, and then we could use this little leftover onto there, because you definitely could save tiny leftovers like that for another project, but they're a little bit small and they'll probably get lost. So if you can utilise them on your project as well, then it's nice to just add them in. And then, even though this is going to overlap that little bit of the flower there, I don't mind. I'm just going to run that straight across the top of that. I think that's going to look fine. You could just like not press there and then the rub-on would stay on the carrier sheet. I'll see if I can get that to work actually and show you how it's possible to do that. So if we're rubbing this on, we're going to press firmly up to the flower, and then this side will press firmly up to the flower and a little bit down here. And then, hopefully, if we haven't accidentally pressed in the wrong place, this section here should stay on the carrier sheet. There we go. So it's kind of gone around it. It has gone onto the edges a little bit there, but we've got that little piece left on there, which again could be used somewhere else on the project as well. Maybe we could fill in that tiny little gap there with it. I think that would work quite well, actually. There we go. We've got a tiny little bit filled in there as well. So now we've got our border. Yes, we're missing a little bit over here, but I don't think that actually matters to the overall design. I quite like that it's a little bit, you know, not quite complete. There's a couple of areas where we haven't got any border going around, but we want to tie our sentiment in to go nicely with this. So we could put it there, we could put it down here. I'm thinking maybe further down the bottom of the card, I think. But what stitching do we want to use on this one? So we have a little bit of the same with that other line running through it. We could go with this one, which is like a larger stitch. We could go really fine and use parts of this little frame here and do a really fine stitch around it as well. We can kind of audition this and hold it up and see what we think. Actually, if we look at that, that is like the perfect length, this frame, for that sentiment. So I'm thinking I'm going to utilise that frame. I'm going to snip into it and then I'm going to cut up and around it. So these rub-ons in particular, because we've got so many different pieces in here, you kind of want to get used to snipping in and around these ones to really make the most of them when you're using them on your projects. And I think that is going to be perfect just to sort of box in that sentiment, and then we can decide what we're going to do for the bottom edge of it as well, whether we want to add something else on it or whether we like it as an open edge as well. So now we can carefully take the backing off of this, place this over the top of our stamped sentiment, and then rub that down into position. Okay, and then peel that off, and then now we've got 3 borders around our sentiment, and we could, if we want to, we could take the other edge of that, or this piece. I'm looking at this piece here that matches with the stitches that we've used around the edge. I think that would work quite well. So I think I'm going to snip into it this way. When you are snipping into your rub-ons, depending how you're going to keep them, whether you're going to keep them in the packet, keep them somewhere else so they're all sort of staying together, kind of think about how you're chopping into them, whether you're then going to have loose ones that you're going to have to look after as separate little rub-ons. So I sort of went in this direction so I could snip it out and all of the rest of it would still be joined together. So think about that a little bit when you're cutting things out. And like for this one, I went up and around the frame rather than having then this one loose to look after if I had cut straight across this as well. So think about that when you're cutting into your rub-ons. So we've got this piece now. And even though it doesn't go all the way to the edge, I think that's going to look really good as the bottom edge of our sentiment here. So I'm going to add that in, like so. Oh, I think that works perfectly. Just gives a really nice finished look. And it's so easy to do as well. So we're going to rub that on, remove the backing, and there we've got our sentiment that we can just trim around so that it's going to fit better onto our card. Now, you could do this with a trimmer if you want it to be straight around the edges. You may end up snipping parts of your rub-ons off if you do that. I tend to personally just go with the wonkiness of it. I don't really mind too much if my sentiment is a bit wonky. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut around and go straight along those straight bits, but actually cut around, I might use my smaller scissors actually, these end pieces so that they're still all intact and I'm not actually cutting them off, and it's just going to be a sort of funny shaped sentiment banner, but I think it's going to sort of add to the effect. So we can carefully trim this off as well. And then, do we like this curved piece here? Yeah, I don't think I mind that curved piece there. I was just sort of following the curve of that rub-on, but yeah, I like that. So, do we want it down here on the card, or do we want it further up here? I think maybe I like it further up there actually, because it's kind of bringing in this stitch where this part of the border's missing. I like that a lot. Okay, so the way I'm keeping my rub-ons is I am just putting them back in the packet. So I'm only starting like one sheet at a time, you know, one sheet of each design at a time, and then I'm slipping them back into the packet so that I keep them all safe and together. So for the sentiment, I'm going to add this with a little bit of 3D foam just to sort of raise it up. This is just a 1mm 3D foam just to give it a little bit of depth on the card. And then once we've added this into position, just going to bring in some dream drops. These are the Dragon Scales Nouveau Dream Drops, just to add some extra embellishment. So I used Love Potion on the previous one because I did a pink version of the card, but you can see now we've got a beautiful green version of this card, so it'll work perfectly for anybody's favourite colour. If you want to adapt this design and use it for sending to somebody their favourite colour, just pick an ink pad, pick a cardstock colour, and then create this similar design. I'm just going to make sure there's no excess bits of glue on here. And then this one I kept all of the drops inside the flowers, but because I've left more space down here, I've kind of spaced out some of the stamping a little bit more. I am going to put some in the background as well. So I'm going to do just a few on the flowers, and then I will add some to the background as well. But you can do this with your enamel dots from Arden, you can do it with sequins, gems, pearls, anything that you have in your stash, even just a sparkly gel pen, you could just draw some little dots on, anything that you want to, just to kind of fill in any of those gaps. Or maybe you've got some small stamps in your stash that would work really nicely to fill in any of those little areas as well, just to kind of complete the background. I don't want to go too over the top, but I do tend to get a little bit carried away, so I think another one just there. And then all I would do to finish that card is just add it to my card blank, and then you've got the perfect Thinking of You little card, which is just a green variation of this On Your Special Day one that I created before. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video using the Dragonfly Dreams collection from Textures and Arden Creative Studios, and I've been using the Magnolia Halftone stamp and coordinating die set, and they work really nicely together. I've used the Stitch Pattern Volume 2 rub-ons, and then I've also used the Watercolour Splash Halftone stamp set for the sentiment on this as well. And then I've just used a Distress Oxide, which was Twisted Citron, and then I have also used the Kelly Green 12x12 cardstock from Arden as well to do the green die cutting on here too. So really hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye!